Sometimes the strongest moments come not from victory, but from the raw, fragile human spirit standing tall amid the wreckage. Before we begin the story, let us know where you're watching from by leaving a comment below. If you enjoy this video from Soulful Narratives, don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a wonderful day and enjoy the story. Everyone, Jasmine Walker had never felt more powerful or more broken than she did in this moment. Standing in the doorway of courtroom 5C, she watched her soon-to-be ex-husband Marcus Langford crumble. As the judge's final words echoed through the air, the defendant's petition is denied. Miss Walker retains full ownership of her law practice, her assets, and her dignity. Her dignity. The judge had actually said that. The click of her designer heels, the last expensive gift Marcus had given her before she discovered his betrayal, rang out like gunshots against the marble courthouse floor. Each step through the grand hallway was a declaration, each breath a victory song. She had walked into this building as a woman destroyed by lies, and was walking out as a queen reclaiming her throne. Victory should have tasted sweet. Instead, it tasted like tears. Tears she refused to shed, and dreams she'd never get back. Jasmine, wait. Marcus's voice cut through the courthouse chatter, desperation bleeding through his usual arrogance. She turned slowly, her dark eyes meeting his for what she hoped would be the last time. Even now, after everything, he was still handsome in that privileged way that had first attracted her, tall, well-dressed, with the kind of confident smile that money could buy. Behind him, the Langford family stood in their expensive suits, whispering threats about appeals and revenge. Marcus's mother, Claudine, with her perfectly styled silver hair and cold blue eyes, was already on her phone, no doubt summoning their army of lawyers. The Langford family had money, connections, and a legacy of destroying anyone who dared challenge them. But Jasmine possessed something they couldn't comprehend. She had survived poverty, discrimination, and abandonment. She was a queen who had built her own kingdom from nothing, and no one would strip that from her. "There's nothing left to say, Marcus," she replied, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. The judge made it clear. "The law practice is mine, the house is mine, and my dignity is mine to keep. You can't seriously think you'll survive without my family's support," he sneered, stepping closer. His designer cologne, the same scent that once made her heart race, now churned her stomach. "You're nothing without us, Jasmine, nothing but a charity case who got lucky." The words struck her like physical blows, each one calculated to shatter the confidence she'd built over years of fighting for her place in a world that had never welcomed her. But Jasmine had endured worse. She'd survived worse. "I was never nothing, Marcus. I was simply naive enough to believe that love could overcome the venom in your heart." She turned away from him, her spine straight, her chin elevated like the queen she'd always been. "Goodbye, Marcus. May you find whatever hollow satisfaction you're truly seeking." She walked away with purpose, her heels clicking against the marble as she headed for the courthouse exit. The weight of the last 2 years finally began to settle on her shoulders. The sleepless nights preparing for court, the humiliation of discovering Marcus's affairs with his secretary, his tennis instructor, and God knew who else. The heartbreak of realizing that his family had seen her as nothing more than temporary entertainment. The autumn air in Philadelphia hit her face, crisp and cold against her skin, as she stepped outside. She had parked 6 blocks away, too proud to pay for courthouse parking, too broke after legal fees to afford the luxury. Her savings were depleted, her practice barely surviving, and her heart was shattered into pieces she wasn't sure she could ever put back together. She made it halfway down the courthouse steps when her legs began to shake. The adrenaline that had carried her through the hearing was fading, replaced by an exhaustion so deep it seemed to reach her bones. She gripped the cold metal railing, trying to steady herself, but the world began to tilt and spin. I can't," she whispered to herself, her breath coming in short gasps. The stress, the lack of sleep, the emotional toll of the divorce, it all hit her at once like a freight train. She hadn't eaten in 12 hours, hadn't slept properly in weeks. Her body was shutting down, her knees buckled, and she felt herself falling toward the concrete steps. This was it. She was going to collapse on the courthouse steps like some tragic figure, giving Marcus and his family one final moment of satisfaction. But instead of hitting cold concrete, she found herself caught in strong, warm arms. The scent of honest work and clean soap filled her nostrils as she was lifted effortlessly against a broad chest. Through her blurred vision, she saw eyes the color of a stormy sky looking down at her with genuine concern. "I've got you," a deep voice murmured, and something in those 3 words made her feel safer than she had in months. "You're okay. I've got you." Jasmine tried to focus on her rescuer's face, but her vision was swimming. She could make out strong features, light brown hair, and those incredible eyes that seemed to see straight through to her soul. He was wearing work clothes, a flannel shirt and jeans, and his hands bore the calluses of honest labor. "My sister went through something similar," he said quietly. His voice meant only for her. "Divorce court. I was here for her hearing. Saw you come out of the other courtroom. You looked like you were carrying the weight of the world. Call an ambulance." He shouted to someone nearby, his voice carrying an authority that cut through the courthouse crowd. "She needs medical attention." "No." Jasmine tried to protest, her voice barely a whisper. "I'm fine." "You need to be checked out," he said firmly, settling her more comfortably in his arms. She realized he was kneeling on the steps, holding her against his chest like she weighed nothing. "You scared me when you started to fall." There was something about the way he said "scared me" that made her heart flutter, despite her exhaustion. This stranger was looking at her like she mattered, like her well-being was important to him. When was the last time someone had looked at her that way? The sound of sirens filled the air, and Jasmine realized a crowd had gathered, faces staring down at her. She saw Marcus pushing through, his expression shifting from anger to confusion to something that might have been concern. "Jasmine, what happened?" Marcus demanded, but her rescuer's arms tightened around her protectively. "Step back," the stranger said, his voice taking on a dangerous edge that made Jasmine's pulse quicken. "Give her space to breathe." When the paramedics arrived, Jasmine expected her rescuer to hand her over and disappear into the crowd. Instead, he stood up with her still in his arms, his jaw set with determination. "I'm riding with her," he announced to the paramedics, his tone brooking no argument. "Are you family?" one of the EMTs asked, already preparing the gurney. Jasmine felt her rescuer's arms tighten around her, his chest rising and falling with a deep breath. In that moment, with her world spinning and her heart breaking, she looked up into those stormy eyes and saw something that took her breath away. A man who cared about her well-being, more than Marcus ever had. "She's my wife," he said, his voice carrying such conviction that even Jasmine almost believed it. The words hit the crowd like a thunderbolt. Marcus's face went white, his mother gasped audibly, and Jasmine felt her heart skip a beat. This stranger, this beautiful, gentle stranger was claiming her as his own. "Your wife?" Marcus sputtered, his voice cracking with disbelief. Her rescuer looked directly at him, his eyes blazing with protective fury. "That's right, my wife. And if you don't step back and let the paramedics do their job, we're going to have a problem." There was a silence that followed, thick, palpable, where Jasmine could feel the judgment in every pair of eyes watching them. Yet beside her stood this man, radiating calm, certainty, and something else she hadn't felt in so long it almost startled her: safety. As Jasmine was loaded onto the gurney, she caught Marcus's expression: shock, confusion, and something that looked almost like regret. For the first time since she'd known him, Marcus looked like a man who was realizing he'd lost something precious. She wanted to scream that it was too late, that all the apologies in the world wouldn't fix the years of damage, but her voice had no strength left. Her body was bruised, but her heart had been shattered long before today. The last thing she saw before the ambulance doors closed was her mysterious rescuer climbing in beside her, his hand gently taking hers, his eyes never leaving her face. In that moment, as the sirens began to wail and they pulled away from the courthouse, Jasmine felt something she hadn't felt in years. Not just rescued, but seen, valued, as if this man had reached inside her chaos and reminded her she was worth defending. She felt like a queen being rescued by her king. And somewhere in the crowd behind them, Marcus watched the ambulance disappear. finally understanding that he had lost the most incredible woman he'd ever known to a man who had claimed her as his own in less than 5 minutes. The queen had fallen, but she hadn't fallen alone. She whispered, her voice rough from exhaustion. "Hi. Hi yourself," he replied, and the gentleness in his tone made her heart flutter. "How are you feeling?" "Like I was hit by a truck," she admitted, trying to sit up. Immediately, he was on his feet, helping her adjust the hospital bed, his hands careful and warm against her arms. His touch was steady, comforting in a way that felt disarmingly intimate, like he'd known exactly how to hold her without making her feel fragile. "The doctor said you were dehydrated and exhausted. When's the last time you ate a real meal?" Jasmine thought about it and realized she couldn't remember. "I don't know, maybe 2 days ago." His jaw tightened and she saw something dangerous flash in his eyes. 2 days? Jesus, Jasmine. "You know my name?" she said, surprised. "I asked the nurses. I hope that's okay." He settled back into his chair, but she could see the tension in his shoulders. "I'm Caleb. Caleb Morgan." "Caleb," she repeated, liking the way his name felt on her tongue. "Thank you for everything. You didn't have to stay." "Yes, I did." His voice was firm, leaving no room for argument. "Someone needed to make sure you were okay." "But you told them I was your wife." The words hung in the air between them, and Jasmine felt her cheeks warm. "Why did you do that?" Caleb was quiet for a long moment, his eyes studying her face like he was memorizing every detail. His gaze wasn't just focused, it was reverent, like she was something rare and precious. "Because you looked like you needed someone to claim you, to protect you." He paused, running a hand through his hair. "And because that bastard ex-husband of yours was looking at you like you were something he could throw away." The fierce protectiveness in his voice made her breath catch. "You don't even know me." "I know enough." He leaned forward, his elbows resting on his knees. "I know you're a lawyer who just won a difficult case. I know you're strong enough to walk out of that courthouse with your head held high, even when you were falling apart inside. I know you're beautiful enough to stop traffic, and I know that any man who would hurt you is a fool." Jasmine felt tears prick at her eyes. She had fought so long to be seen, not just for her victories in court, but for the silent battles she waged every day. And here was this man. Seeing her so clearly, it almost hurt. "You don't understand. I'm not someone men fight for. I'm not someone men claim." "Then you've been meeting the wrong men." The simple statement hit her like a physical blow. She stared at him, this gentle giant in work clothes and worn boots, and felt something shift inside her chest. "I should go," she said suddenly, throwing back the hospital blanket. "I have work to do, bills to pay." "Whoa, hold on." Caleb was on his feet again. His hands, gentle but firm, rested on her shoulders. "The doctor wants to keep you overnight for observation. You can't just walk out of here." "I can't afford to stay overnight," Jasmine said, the words tumbling out before she could stop them. "I don't have insurance that covers this, and I just spent everything I had on legal fees." Caleb's expression softened, and he sat on the edge of her bed, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something clean and masculine that made her want to lean into him. "Don't worry about that," he said quietly. "I'll take care of it." "No." Jasmine shook her head firmly. "I don't accept charity. I don't accept handouts. I've been taking care of myself since I was 16, and I'm not going to stop now." "It's not charity," Caleb said, his voice patient. "It's what someone does when they care about another person." "You don't know me well enough to care about me." Caleb was quiet for a long moment, his eyes never leaving hers. "Maybe not," he said, "but I'd like to, if you'll let me." The silence between them was heavy, charged with something unspoken. Hope, fear, maybe even the fragile beginnings of trust. Jasmine's chest tightened as if the very idea of letting someone in again might shatter her. Before Jasmine could respond, there was a knock at the door. A nurse entered with a cheerful smile, carrying a tray that smelled like heaven. "Good evening, Mrs. Morgan," the nurse said, setting the tray on Jasmine's bedside table. "Your husband insisted on ordering from the Italian place down the street instead of hospital food. He said you needed something that would actually give you strength." Jasmine's eyes widened as she looked at the tray. Homemade minestrone soup, fresh bread, and what looked like the best lasagna she'd ever seen. Her stomach growled audibly. "Thank you," Caleb said to the nurse, his tone suggesting this was perfectly normal. "Could you give us a few minutes?" When the nurse left, Jasmine turned to stare at him. "Mrs. Morgan?" "I had to keep up the story," he said with a shrug, though she could see the blush creeping up his neck. "Besides, you need to eat, and hospital food is terrible." "You can't just take care of me like this," Jasmine protested, even as she reached for the soup. The first spoonful was warm and perfect, and she had to suppress a moan of pleasure. It was more than food. It was safety, a kindness so foreign, so undeserved in her mind, that it brought an ache to her throat. "Why not?" he asked. "Because I don't know you. Because you're a stranger. Because—" She paused, searching for the real reason. "Because people don't just do this. Not for me." Caleb's expression grew serious. "Jasmine, can I ask you something?" She nodded, still eating the soup like she hadn't seen food in days. "What happened to you? Who hurt you so badly that you can't believe someone would want to take care of you?" The question hit her like a physical blow, and she set down her spoon with trembling hands. "I can't." "You don't have to tell me," Caleb said quickly. "But I want you to know that whatever happened, it doesn't define you. You're worth caring for. You're worth protecting." Jasmine felt tears spill down her cheeks before she could stop them. "You don't understand. I've never been enough. Not for my father, who left when I was born. Not for my mother's boyfriends, who saw me as an inconvenience. Not for Marcus, who—" She stopped, unable to finish. "Who?" Caleb's voice was dangerously quiet. "Who said I was practice? That I was good enough for now, but not good enough to keep? Not good enough to be seen with in public? Not good enough to take home to his family?" The words poured out of her like blood from a wound. "He said I was entertaining, but I wasn't wife material. Not for a man like him." Caleb stood up so fast his chair scraped against the floor. Jasmine could see his hands clenched into fists, his jaw tight with rage. "That son of a bitch," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "I should have hit him when I had the chance." "Caleb, no, listen to me." He turned back to her, his eyes blazing with an intensity that took her breath away. Everything he said was a lie. His voice trembled slightly, not from weakness but from the depth of emotion held just below the surface. His fury wasn't about ego. It was about justice. About a man finally seeing the hurt written on a woman's soul and not turning away. "You are magnificent, Jasmine. You are brilliant and strong and beautiful, and any man who can't see that is blind." "You don't know me," she whispered. "I know enough." He sat back down, reaching for her hands. "I know you're a fighter. I know you're someone who stands up for what's right. I know you're someone who deserves to be loved, completely, honestly, and forever." His hands, rough from labor, were warm and steady. She felt the strength in his touch, not controlling but grounding, like an anchor in a storm. Jasmine stared at him, this man who had appeared out of nowhere and was speaking to her like she was precious. "Who are you, Caleb Morgan?" "I'm just a guy who works with his hands and believes in treating people right," he said, squeezing her fingers gently. "I'm a guy who thinks you're the most incredible woman he's ever met, and who would like very much to prove to you that good men still exist." "I don't date," Jasmine said quickly. "I can't." "I'm not asking you to date me," Caleb said with a gentle smile. "I'm asking you to let me be your friend, to let me bring you soup when you're sick and make sure you eat real food. To let me be someone you can count on." Jasmine looked into his eyes and saw something she hadn't seen in years. Genuine care, with no agenda. No expectation of return. It disarmed her. That kind of kindness wasn't something she knew how to handle. She had braced for manipulation, for pity, but instead found a presence that asked for nothing but allowed everything. This man was offering her friendship with no strings attached, and it terrified her. "I don't know how to do this," she admitted. "Neither do I," Caleb said with a laugh. "But maybe we can figure it out together." Outside, the rain continued to fall. But inside the hospital room, something warm, fragile, and precious was beginning to bloom. Jasmine didn't know what to call it yet, but for the first time in months, she wasn't facing the future alone. And Caleb Morgan, billionaire CEO pretending to be a simple working man, looked at the woman in the hospital bed and knew his life had just changed forever. Chapter 3. Love's First Whisper. 3 days after her collapse, Jasmine was beginning to believe in miracles. She stood in front of the bathroom mirror in her small apartment, staring at her reflection and hardly recognizing the woman looking back at her. For the first time in months, her dark eyes held a spark of something that looked suspiciously like hope. Her phone buzzed on the counter, and she smiled before even looking at the screen. She already knew who it was. "Good morning, beautiful. Did you eat breakfast?" "Good morning to you too. And yes, I had the eggs and toast you brought yesterday." "Good. I was thinking about lunch. There's this little soul food place on Linmore that makes the best cornbread in Philly. Want to try it?" Jasmine's fingers hovered over the phone. In the 3 days since the hospital, Caleb had texted her every morning and evening, brought her groceries, and somehow managed to make her laugh, even when she was drowning in work. He was keeping his promise to be her friend, but the way he looked at her made her heart race in ways she hadn't felt in years. "Jasmine, I'd like that. But I'm paying for my own meal." "We'll see about that." "Caleb, I'm serious. I don't want you spending money on me." "It's just lunch, Jasmine. Friends buy each other lunch." She stared at the message, her heart doing that fluttery thing it did whenever he called her his friend. The word should have felt safe, comfortable. Instead, it felt like a beautiful lie they were both telling themselves. "Okay, but somewhere cheap. Trust me, I know just the place." An hour later, Jasmine stood outside Mama Rose's Soul Kitchen, watching Caleb walk up the street toward her. He was wearing jeans that had seen better days and a simple button-down shirt that looked like it had come from a thrift store. His hair was slightly damp, like he'd rushed to shower after work, and he carried himself with the easy confidence of a man who worked with his hands. "You look beautiful," he said when he reached her, and the way he said it made her believe it might be true. "You look like you came straight from a job site," she replied, trying to keep her tone light even though her pulse was racing. "I did." He held up his hands, showing her the calluses on his palms. "Sorry if I smell like sawdust and paint." "You smell like honest work," Jasmine said, and meant it. "I like it." Something flickered in Caleb's eyes, and for a moment she thought she saw him hesitate, but then he smiled and gestured toward the restaurant. "Shall we?" Mama Rose gets cranky if people stand around blocking her door. Inside, the restaurant was exactly what Jasmine had expected. Checkered tablecloths, mismatched chairs, and the kind of warmth that only came from family recipes and genuine love. The air was thick with the smell of cornbread and collard greens, and Jasmine felt her stomach growl in response. "Caleb." A large woman with graying hair and a smile that could light up a room emerged from behind the counter. "Baby, where have you been? I haven't seen you in ages." "Hey, Mama Rose," Caleb said, accepting a hug that would have crushed a smaller man. "I've been busy with work. This is Jasmine, the friend I told you about." Mama Rose turned her attention to Jasmine, her sharp eyes taking in every detail. "So you're the one who's got our Caleb all twisted up. Girl, you are even prettier than he said, and he's been singing your praises like a man struck by lightning." "He has not," Jasmine protested, but she could feel her cheeks warming. "Oh, honey, yes he has." Mama Rose laughed, a rich sound that filled the restaurant. "He came in here yesterday asking what kind of food would help a woman recover her strength. Talking about how you've been working too hard and not eating enough. That man is completely smitten." The words sank into Jasmine like sunlight through cold glass. She wasn't used to being talked about like she mattered, like her well-being was something worth caring about. "Mama Rose?" Caleb said, his voice carrying a warning that only made the older woman laugh harder. "Don't you Mama Rose me, boy. I've been watching you for 3 years, and I've never seen you bring a woman in here. This one must be special." Jasmine felt her heart skip as she glanced at Caleb. He was looking at her with an expression she couldn't quite read, something tender and vulnerable that made her want to reach out and touch his face. "She is special," he said quietly. The simplicity of the words shattered something inside her. She wasn't just tolerated. She wasn't someone he was helping out of pity. To him, she was special, and the words hit her like a physical caress. Mama Rose seated them at a corner table, close enough that their knees brushed when they settled down. Jasmine tried to focus on the menu, but she was acutely aware of Caleb beside her. The way he tapped his fingers rhythmically on the table when thinking, the way he kept stealing glances at her as if ensuring she was really there. "So what's good here?" she asked, attempting to break the tension. "Everything," Caleb said. "But the fried chicken is legendary, and the mac and cheese?" He paused, closing his eyes and making a sound that was almost sinful. "Should probably be illegal in several states." Jasmine laughed, and the sound surprised her. When had she last laughed like that? Light, free, and completely uninhibited. "I'll have the fried chicken then," she decided. "And the mac and cheese that's probably illegal? Make that too." "Coming right up," Caleb called to Mama Rose, who was already heading toward the kitchen. "And cornbread," Mama Rose called back. "Extra butter for the skinny girl." When they were alone again, Caleb reached across the table and touched Jasmine's hand. "You doing okay? You seem tense walking in here." "Better now," she said, realizing it was true. "I slept through the night for the first time in months." "Good, you needed it." His thumb traced gentle circles on her knuckles. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "What made you want to be a lawyer?" Jasmine was quiet for a moment, surprised by the question. "My mother," she said finally. "She was gorgeous, the kind of beautiful that stops traffic, but she was also poor, black, and young. Men took advantage of that." Caleb's jaw tightened, but he didn't interrupt. "When I was 7, she started dating this man, Charles Whitaker. He was wealthy, sophisticated, everything she'd ever dreamed of. He swept her off her feet, promised her the moon." Jasmine's voice grew bitter. "He moved us into his mansion, bought us nice clothes, made us feel like we finally belonged. What happened? I happened." Jasmine pulled her hand away, wrapping her arms around herself. "I was too dark for his social circle, too obviously not his biological daughter. His friends started making comments, asking questions, so he gave my mother an ultimatum, him or me." "Jesus," Caleb breathed. "She chose me. Of course she chose me. But not before he'd already destroyed her sense of self-worth. He'd made her dependent on him, cut her off from her friends, convinced her she was nothing without him. When we left, she had nothing. No money, no job skills, no confidence." She paused, blinking hard. Her voice cracked slightly when she continued. "I watched my mother try to rebuild herself from ashes. I watched her cry into her pillow when she thought I was asleep, and I swore to myself, no man would ever make me feel that small." "That's why you became a lawyer," Caleb said, understanding dawning in his voice. "I swore I'd never be powerless like that, never be at someone else's mercy. I'd make my own way. Fight for women who couldn't fight for themselves." Jasmine looked down at her hands. "Fat lot of good it did me. I still ended up married to a man who saw me as temporary amusement." "No," Caleb said firmly. "You ended up divorcing a man who wasn't worth your time. There's a difference." Before Jasmine could respond, Mama Rose appeared with their food. The table was suddenly covered with plates of golden fried chicken, creamy mac and cheese, perfectly seasoned collard greens, and cornbread that looked like it had been blessed by angels. "Eat up, babies," Mama Rose said, but her eyes were on Caleb. "And Caleb, you make sure this girl gets plenty. She's too skinny." "Yes, ma'am," Caleb said solemnly. As they ate, the conversation flowed easily. Caleb told her about his work, carefully vague stories about construction jobs and difficult clients. Jasmine found herself relaxing, laughing at his stories, enjoying the simple pleasure of sharing a meal with someone who actually listened when she talked. "This is incredible," she said, taking another bite of the mac and cheese. "I think I'm in love." "With the mac and cheese?" Caleb asked, but there was something in his voice that made her look up. "With the mac and cheese," she confirmed. But their eyes met across the table and held. "Good," he said quietly, "because I think I'm in love too." The words hung in the air between them, loaded with a meaning that had nothing to do with food. Jasmine froze, her fork halfway to her mouth, suspended between comfort and chaos. Her heart stumbled inside her chest, not from surprise, but from recognition. Jasmine felt her heart start to race, felt that familiar flutter of panic when things got too real too fast. "Caleb, I'm not talking about the mac and cheese," he said, his voice gentle but determined. "I'm talking about the way you tilt your head when you're thinking, the way you light up when you laugh, the way you fight for what's right, even when it costs you everything." "You don't know me," Jasmine whispered, but the protest sounded weak, even to her own ears. "I know enough. Caleb reached across the table again, this time taking both of her hands in his. I know you're brave and brilliant and beautiful. I know you've been hurt, and I know you're scared, but I also know that what I feel for you is real, and I think you feel it too. Jasmine stared at him. This man who had appeared in her life like a guardian angel was now telling her he was falling in love with her. And worse, her soul believed him. As if somewhere deep inside, a door had opened that she'd sworn would stay locked. The rational part of her brain screamed warnings. It was too soon, too fast, too dangerous. But her heart was singing a different song entirely. I do feel it, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. And it terrifies me. Why? Because I don't trust myself. Because I thought I loved Marcus, and look how that turned out. Because I'm afraid that if I let myself care about you, you'll realize I'm not worth it, and leave. Caleb stood up suddenly, his chair scraping against the floor. For a moment, Jasmine thought he was walking away, proving her fears right. Instead, he came around the table and knelt beside her chair, taking her face in his hands. Jasmine Walker, he said, his voice rough with emotion, you are worth everything. You are worth fighting for, worth protecting, worth loving with everything I have, and I'm not going anywhere. Promise me, she whispered, tears threatening to spill. I promise. He leaned forward, his forehead touching hers. Can I kiss you? Jasmine nodded, not trusting her voice. Caleb's lips touched hers, gently, tentatively, like he was afraid she might break. But when she kissed him back, when she showed him she wasn't fragile, the kiss deepened into something that made her feel like she was coming home. They were interrupted by applause from the other diners, and Jasmine pulled back laughing and blushing. Caleb grinned, unashamed and unrepentant. That was, she started. Perfect, he finished. I was going to say public. That too. He stood up, offering her his hand. Come on, let's get out of here before Mama Rose starts planning our wedding. As they walked out of the restaurant, Jasmine felt lighter than she had in years. The autumn air was crisp and clean, and Caleb's hand was warm in hers. They walked slowly, neither wanting the afternoon to end. Your friends seem great, Caleb said, his arm around her waist. I was worried they wouldn't approve of me. Why wouldn't they approve? Jasmine asked, genuinely confused. Because I'm not a lawyer or a doctor or some other professional. Because I work with my hands instead of my brain. Jasmine stopped walking and turned to face him. Caleb, you are the smartest, kindest, most wonderful man I've ever met. Anyone who can't see that is an idiot. I love you, he said, cupping her face in his hands. I love your passion, your intelligence, your strength. I love the way you fight for people who can't fight for themselves. You make me feel like I can conquer the world, Jasmine said, standing on her tiptoes to kiss him. Like I can do anything, as long as you're beside me. You can, Caleb said against her lips. You proved that today. The kiss deepened, and Jasmine felt that familiar fire ignite in her belly. After 2 weeks of stolen kisses and heated glances, she was ready for more. Take me home, she whispered against his lips. Your place or mine? Caleb asked, his voice rough with desire. Yours, Jasmine said. I want to see where you live. 20 minutes later, Caleb was opening the door to a modest apartment in a working-class neighborhood. Jasmine looked around, taking in the simple furniture, the worn but clean carpet, the small kitchen with older appliances. It's perfect, she said, and meant it. It feels like you. Honest and a little rough around the edges? Caleb asked. Warm and real and wonderful, Jasmine corrected, wrapping her arms around his neck. Their lovemaking was slow and tender, full of whispered endearments and gentle touches. Caleb worshipped her body like she was something precious, something sacred. He made her feel beautiful, desired, cherished in ways she'd never experienced. Every kiss felt like a vow, every caress a silent promise. Jasmine clung to him, not just physically, but emotionally, allowing herself to believe that this moment, this man, might be different, might be safe. Afterward they lay entwined in his bed, Jasmine's head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. I've never felt like this before, she said softly. Like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. You are, Caleb said, his fingers tracing patterns on her shoulder. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. Promise me something, Jasmine said, tilting her head to look at him. Anything. Promise me we'll always be honest with each other. Promise me we'll always talk about things, even when it's hard. Caleb's body tensed slightly. "I promise," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I promise I'll always be honest with you." "Good," Jasmine said, settling back against his chest. "Because I can't survive another relationship built on lies." Her words weren't just a boundary, they were a plea. A quiet, desperate hope that this time she wouldn't be betrayed. That maybe love didn't always have to hurt. As Jasmine drifted off to sleep, Caleb stared at the ceiling and felt his heart break. He wanted nothing more than to keep the promise he just made. But he was already living a lie so enormous it could destroy everything. He loved her more than life itself, and that love was going to cost him everything. Tonight, he would hold her and pretend that love was enough to overcome any obstacle. Tomorrow, he would find a way to tell her the truth, without losing her forever. Caleb grinned. "I was hoping you'd say that. I brought you work clothes." He handed her a thrift store package. Inside were paint-stained jeans, a soft t-shirt, and worn work boots. "You bought me clothes?" she asked, touched. "I figured you needed something that wasn't connected to before." Caleb's voice was gentle. "Something completely yours." This man understood what she hadn't even realized, that she needed to build something new, something untainted by her past. "Thank you," she whispered. 20 minutes later, Jasmine emerged from her bedroom wearing the clothes. They fit perfectly, and she felt like a woman ready to build something beautiful. Caleb had already moved her furniture and laid out plastic sheeting. He had changed into worn jeans and a flannel shirt that stretched across his shoulders in a way that made her pulse quicken. "Painting first," he said, opening paint cans. "I picked colors I thought you'd like." The samples were perfect. Soft sage green, warm cream, cheerful yellow, exactly what she would have chosen if she'd had the luxury of choice. "How did you know?" she asked. "I pay attention." He handed her a brush. "You like things that feel like home, not a showroom." They worked in comfortable silence. The rhythm was soothing. Jasmine found herself stealing glances at Caleb, admiring how he moved with quiet efficiency, humming under his breath. "What kind of construction do you do?" she asked. Caleb paused. "Different projects, residential mostly. I work for a small company. We handle whatever pays the bills." "Is that what you always wanted?" "No," he said after a moment. "I wanted to build things, design things that would last." "You still could? You're smart." "School costs money," Caleb said, a shadow in his voice. "There are scholarships you could. My dad got sick when I was 18. Cancer. I chose taking care of him over college." Caleb's voice was controlled. He was a good man, deserved better than dying alone. Jasmine's heart ached for him. "I'm sorry. It taught me what matters." He looked at her intently. "That money doesn't make people good or bad. It just makes them more of what they already are." She thought about all the wealthy men who had used their power to hurt people. Not everyone sees it that way. "But you do." Caleb moved closer, close enough that she could smell paint and honest work on him. "That's one of the things I love about you." The word love hung between them. Looking into his eyes, she could see he meant it. "I know it's crazy," he said, setting down his brush and taking her face in his hands, "but I've never felt like this about anyone. You make me want to be better." "You're already amazing," she whispered. "Kiss me," he said, and it wasn't a request. Jasmine didn't hesitate. She kissed him, tasting paint and possibility. His arms came around her, pulling her close, and the kiss deepened into something that made her knees weak. It was a kiss full of beginnings, of broken hearts trying again, of two souls cautiously reaching for something neither had dared hope for. When they broke apart, both were breathing hard. "We should get back to painting," he said, his voice rough with desire. "Probably," she agreed. But neither moved. "I'm not going anywhere," Caleb said seriously. "Whatever this becomes, I'm completely committed." "Even though I'm damaged?" she asked. "You're not damaged. You're healing, and I want to be part of that healing." Tears pricked her eyes. "I don't know how to let someone take care of me." "We'll figure it out together." He kissed her forehead. "One day at a time." They worked for hours, painting and talking. Caleb shared carefully edited stories about work, while Jasmine talked about law school and her dreams before Marcus tried to destroy them. By evening, the living room was transformed. The sage green walls felt warm and welcoming, the cream trim elegant. It looked like home. "It's beautiful," Jasmine said in wonder. We make a good team, Caleb said, wrapping his arms around her from behind. I can see us doing this for years. Years? She turned in his arms. Decades, if you'll have me. This isn't casual for me, Jasmine. Not for me either. It's terrifying. And wonderful. The best things usually are. They ordered pizza and ate sitting on the floor. Jasmine shared her biggest dream, opening a legal clinic for women who couldn't afford lawyers. That's beautiful, Caleb said, genuine admiration in his voice. What's stopping you? Money, time, the fact that I can barely keep my practice afloat. Those are just obstacles, not insurmountable ones. Easy to say when you don't have a dream that costs more than you could make in a lifetime. Caleb was quiet, then spoke carefully. What if you had help, financial backing? From where? I don't have wealthy friends or family money. I'm just a girl from the projects who got lucky. There are grants, foundations, people who believe in causes like yours. Maybe someday, when I've proven myself. Why not now? Caleb asked. Why wait? Jasmine looked at this man who seemed to believe she could do anything. His unwavering faith in her felt like both a gift and a burden. She wasn't used to being someone's hope. And yet in his eyes, she saw the reflection of the woman she wanted to become. Because I'm scared. I've lost so much already. You won't lose, not with me beside you. I believe in you, Jasmine. I believe in us. Surrounded by evidence of their shared work, Jasmine felt real hope for the first time in years. Maybe, just maybe, she could have the life she'd always dreamed of. Hope felt like a fragile bird fluttering in her chest, tentative but alive. Something she hadn't dared to believe in for a long time. But Caleb, billionaire CEO pretending to be a working man, wondered how much longer he could maintain this deception. How long before she discovered he already had the power to make all her dreams come true, and how much it would break her to learn he had held back something so big, not out of malice, but out of fear. The fear of losing her trust. The fear of watching that light in her eyes dim once she learned the truth. How long before she realized the man she was falling in love with was living a lie? Chapter 5. The Soul Connection. Jasmine had never believed in soulmates until she watched Caleb hold her hand while she fell apart. She sat in her car outside the courthouse, her hands trembling as she clutched the case file that could change everything. Inside those manila folders was the story of Isabella Cruz, a young mother whose wealthy husband was trying to take her children away, claiming she was unfit because she couldn't afford the lifestyle he wanted for them. It was Jasmine's biggest case since the divorce, and she was terrified she'd fail. You can do this, she whispered to herself, but her voice sounded hollow in the empty car. You have to do this. Her phone buzzed with a text from Caleb. Caleb, how are you feeling about today? Jasmine, terrified. This case, it's everything I've been working toward. But what if I'm not good enough? What if I let her down? Caleb, you won't. You're the most brilliant lawyer I know. I'm the only lawyer you know. That doesn't make it less true. You've got this. Beautiful. I believe in you. His words wrapped around her like armor, not flashy or grand, but solid and unwavering. He didn't just believe in her ability. He believed in her strength, her soul, her why. Jasmine felt some of the tension leave her shoulders. Over the past 2 weeks, Caleb had become her anchor, her safe harbor in a storm she hadn't even realized she was weathering. He brought her coffee in the mornings, stayed up late helping her prepare for cases, and held her when the weight of other people's pain became too much to bear. And he never once asked her to be anything other than exactly who she was. That kind of support, that kind of presence, it was more intimate than any kiss, more sacred than any promise. Jasmine, I love you. She typed the words before she could stop herself, then stared at the screen in horror. They hadn't said it yet, not out loud, not in text. The words hung there on her phone like a confession she wasn't ready to make. Her phone rang immediately. Jasmine, Caleb's voice was warm and rich, full of something that made her heart race. Do you mean that? She closed her eyes, taking a shaky breath. Yes, I mean it. I love you, Caleb. I know it's crazy. I know it's too soon, but I love you. Thank God, he said, and she could hear the relief in his voice. Because I love you too. I've been dying to say it, but I didn't want to scare you. You don't scare me, Jasmine said. You make me feel brave. Good, because you need to be brave today. You need to walk into that courthouse and show everyone what I already know, that you're magnificent." Jasmine felt tears prick her eyes. "I wish you could be there with me." "I'll be there," Caleb said immediately. "I'll take the day off work. I'll be in the gallery, and every time you feel scared, you just look at me and remember that I love you." "You can't take the day off," Jasmine protested. "You'll lose money. You can't afford to lose." "Jasmine," Caleb's voice was firm, "there is nothing more important to me than being there for you. Nothing." 2 hours later, Jasmine stood in front of the judge, her closing argument flowing from her lips like a prayer. She talked about Isabella Cruz, a woman who had given up her career to raise her children, who had been emotionally abused by a man who used his wealth as a weapon, who deserved the chance to rebuild her life, with her children by her side. "Your Honor," Jasmine said, her voice growing stronger with each word, "this case isn't about money. It's about what kind of society we want to be. Do we want to be a society that says children belong with the parent who can buy them the most expensive toys? Or do we want to be a society that says children belong with the parent who loves the most?" She caught Caleb's eye in the gallery, and the pride and love she saw there gave her the strength to continue. "Isabella Cruz may not have millions of dollars, but she has something far more valuable. She has a mother's love. She has the courage to fight for her children, even when the odds are stacked against her. She has the strength to rebuild her life from nothing, to create a home filled with love instead of fear." When the judge ruled in Isabella's favor, Jasmine felt her knees nearly buckle with relief. She turned to find Caleb pushing through the crowd, his face radiant with joy and pride. "You did it," he said, sweeping her into his arms. "You were incredible." "We did it," Jasmine corrected, holding him tight. "I couldn't have done it without you." "Yes, you could have," Caleb said, pulling back to look at her. "But I'm glad you didn't have to." That evening, Jasmine's law school friends threw an impromptu celebration at their favorite bar. Jasmine had been nervous about introducing Caleb to her friends, worried about what they would think of her blue-collar boyfriend. But as she watched him charm her colleagues with his intelligence and humor, she realized her fears had been unfounded. "I like him," her friend Nicole whispered, nudging Jasmine's shoulder. "He's not what I expected." "What did you expect?" Jasmine asked, curious. "I don't know. Someone trying too hard to impress us. I guess someone slick and calculating. But he's just genuine. And the way he looks at you." Nicole sighed dreamily. "Girl, that man is completely gone for you." Jasmine glanced across the room to where Caleb was discussing construction projects with her friend Devin. He was wearing a thrift store suit that fit him perfectly, and he carried himself with a quiet confidence that made her heart race. It wasn't the suit or his stance that got to her. It was the way his eyes always found hers across a crowded room, grounding her with just one look. "He's nothing like Marcus," Jasmine said. "No, he's not," Nicole agreed. "Marcus always acted like he was doing you a favor by being with you. Caleb acts like he won the lottery." "I'm scared," Jasmine admitted. "Of what?" "Of how much I love him, of how much I need him, of what happens if he leaves." Nicole turned to face her fully. "Jasmine, that man is not going anywhere. Trust me, I've seen a lot of relationships, and what you two have, it's rare. Don't let your past destroy your future." Nicole's words struck Jasmine deep. She had spent so many years bracing for disappointment, for betrayal, that the idea of trusting fully felt reckless, but also liberating. Later that night, Jasmine and Caleb walked slowly back to his truck, neither wanting the evening to end. The October air was crisp and clean, and Denver's skyline glittered in the distance. "Your friends are great," Caleb said, his arm around her waist. "I was worried they wouldn't approve of me." "Why wouldn't they approve of you?" Jasmine asked, genuinely confused. "Because I'm not a lawyer, or a doctor, or some other professional, because I work with my hands instead of my brain." Jasmine stopped walking and turned to face him. "Caleb Brooks, you are the smartest, kindest, most wonderful man I've ever met. Anyone who can't see that is an idiot." Her voice trembled slightly, but her conviction was unshakable. For the first time in a long time, she wasn't just defending someone else, she was claiming her own joy. "I love you," he said, cupping her face in his hands. "I love your passion, your intelligence, your strength. I love the way you fight for people who can't fight for themselves. You make me feel like I can conquer the world, Jasmine said, standing on her tiptoes to kiss him. Like I can do anything as long as you're beside me. You can, Caleb said against her lips. You already proved that today. The kiss deepened, and Jasmine felt that familiar fire ignite in her belly. After 2 weeks of stolen kisses and heated glances, she was ready for more. She was ready for everything. Take me home, she whispered against his lips. Your place or mine? Caleb asked, his voice rough with desire. Yours, Jasmine said. I want to see where you live. Caleb hesitated for just a moment, and Jasmine caught the flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. It's not much, he said finally. Just a small apartment, nothing fancy. I don't need fancy, Jasmine said. I just need you. 20 minutes later, Caleb was opening the door to a modest apartment in a working-class neighborhood. Jasmine looked around, taking in the simple furniture, the worn but clean carpet, the small kitchen with appliances that had clearly seen better days. There were no designer pieces or curated aesthetics, just warmth, quiet order, and traces of the man she was falling in love with. A book left open on the armrest, a framed photo of a young boy and a dog. A coat hung carefully by the door. This place didn't try to impress. It offered comfort. It offered truth. It's perfect, she said, and meant it. It feels like you. Honest and a little rough around the edges? Caleb asked with a self-deprecating smile. Warm and real and wonderful, Jasmine corrected, wrapping her arms around his neck. Just like you. Caleb carried her to his bedroom, and Jasmine's breath caught at the tenderness in his touch. He laid her gently on the bed, his eyes never leaving hers. Are you sure? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I've never been more sure of anything, Jasmine said, reaching up to touch his face. I love you, Caleb. I want to be with you, completely. Their lovemaking was slow and sweet, full of whispered endearments and gentle touches. Caleb worshipped her body like she was something precious, something sacred. It wasn't just physical. It was emotional, intimate. Two broken people finding solace in each other's arms. Every kiss was a vow, every touch a silent promise to hold on, no matter what truths remained hidden. He made her feel beautiful, desired, cherished, in ways she'd never experienced before. Afterward, they lay entwined in his bed, Jasmine's head on his chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. I've never felt like this before, she said softly, like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. You are. Caleb said, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her bare shoulder. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. Promise me something, Jasmine said, tilting her head to look at him. Anything. Promise me we'll always be honest with each other. Promise me we'll always talk about things, even when it's hard. Caleb's body tensed slightly, and Jasmine felt him take a deep breath. I promise, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I promise I'll always be honest with you. Good, Jasmine said, settling back against his chest. Because I can't survive another relationship built on lies. As Jasmine drifted off to sleep in his arms, Caleb stared at the ceiling and felt his heart break. He wanted nothing more than to keep the promise he just made. But he was already living a lie so big it could destroy everything they'd built together. He loved her more than he'd ever loved anyone, and that love was going to cost him everything. She stood in her apartment, staring at the weekend bag on her bed, her heart racing with an emotion she couldn't quite name. Caleb had surprised her with a weekend getaway, and for the first time in her life, she was going away with a man she truly loved. It's just camping, she told herself. But her reflection in the mirror looked skeptical. It's not like he's taking you to Paris. The truth was, she wouldn't have wanted Paris. The fact that Caleb had planned something simple, something within his means, made it more precious than any expensive resort ever could have been. He was giving her what he could afford, and that meant everything to her. Her phone buzzed with a text. Caleb, ready for our adventure. I'm downstairs. Coming down, I packed way too much for camping. We'll figure it out. I love you. I love you too. The words still felt new on her tongue, still sent shivers down her spine every time she typed them. 3 weeks of loving Caleb Brooks, and she was still amazed that this beautiful gentleman was hers. Jasmine grabbed her bag and headed downstairs, her heart fluttering with anticipation. She found Caleb leaning against his truck, and the sight of him made her breath catch. He was wearing jeans and a flannel shirt, his hair slightly mussed from the wind, and he looked like every romantic fantasy she'd ever had. "Hi, beautiful," he said, pushing off from the truck to meet her. "Ready for our first official weekend away?" "I've never been camping," Jasmine admitted, letting him take her bag. "I have no idea what I'm doing." "That's what makes it perfect," Caleb said, kissing her softly. "We'll figure it out together." As they drove out of the city, Jasmine watched the urban landscape give way to rolling hills and golden aspens. Caleb had the radio tuned to a classic rock station, and he sang along under his breath, his voice rough and warm. She found herself staring at his profile, memorizing the strong line of his jaw, the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled. "What are you thinking about?" he asked, catching her staring. "How happy I am," Jasmine said honestly. "How I never thought I could feel this way about anyone." "How do you feel?" Caleb asked, his voice soft. "Safe," Jasmine said, the word coming out before she could stop it. "Like I can be myself with you, like I don't have to pretend to be someone else to keep you interested." Caleb's hands tightened on the steering wheel, and Jasmine caught the flash of something painful in his eyes. "You never have to pretend with me," he said. "I love you exactly as you are." "Good," Jasmine said, reaching over to touch his hand. "Because I'm tired of pretending. I spent 2 years pretending to be the kind of woman Marcus wanted, and it nearly destroyed me." "You're perfect," Caleb said, bringing her hand to his lips. "Don't let anyone ever tell you otherwise." They drove in comfortable silence for a while, the autumn landscape flowing past the windows. Jasmine felt a peace she hadn't experienced in years, a contentment that went bone deep. This was what love was supposed to feel like. Easy, natural, like coming home. "So, where exactly are we going?" she asked as Caleb turned onto a dirt road. "It's a surprise," Caleb said, but there was something in his voice that made her look at him more closely. "I found this place online. It's supposed to be special." 20 minutes later, Jasmine understood what he meant. The campsite looked like something out of a fairy tale, a clearing beside a crystal-clear lake, surrounded by aspen trees glowing gold in the afternoon sunlight. There was a fire pit, a picnic table, and enough space for their tent. But they were completely alone. The air smelled of pine and earth, and the wind rustled gently through the golden leaves above them like nature's lullaby. Jasmine took a deep breath, the crisp scent filling her lungs, grounding her. This wasn't just a campsite, it was a sanctuary. "Caleb," Jasmine breathed, climbing out of the truck. "This is incredible." "I hoped you'd like it," Caleb said, but she could hear the nervousness in his voice. "I know it's not fancy." "It's perfect," Jasmine said, wrapping her arms around his neck. "It's absolutely perfect." As they set up their tent, Jasmine couldn't help but notice how smoothly everything went. Caleb seemed to have thought of everything. Extra blankets, a cooler packed with her favorite foods, even a small camping stove for making coffee in the morning. There was even a folded paperback novel tucked in the corner of the tent. Her favorite author. Jasmine stared at it, a lump forming in her throat. He had listened. Really listened. "You really planned this out," she said, impressed by his thoroughness. "I wanted this to be special," Caleb said, his voice sincere. "I wanted to give you something beautiful." "You did," Jasmine said, standing on her tiptoes to kiss him. "You gave me you." That evening, they sat by the fire, Jasmine nestled between Caleb's legs as they watched the flames dance against the darkening sky. The lake reflected the stars, and somewhere in the distance, an owl called out into the night. The silence wasn't empty. It was full of meaning, full of comfort. She leaned into him like he was a lighthouse and she was tired of drifting. "I could stay here forever," Jasmine said, leaning back against Caleb's chest. "So could I," Caleb said, his arms tightening around her. "Just you and me, and all the time in the world." "Tell me about your dreams," Jasmine said suddenly. "Your real dreams, not the practical ones." Caleb was quiet for a long moment, his chin resting on top of her head. "I dream about building something lasting," he said finally. "Something that matters. I dream about having a family, kids who grow up knowing they're loved. I dream about waking up every morning, next to the woman I love, and knowing that she loves me back." "What else?" Jasmine prompted, sensing there was more. "I dream about changing the world, even just a little, about using whatever talents I have to make life better for people who need help." Caleb's voice grew passionate. "I dream about being the kind of man who deserves someone like you. You already are that man, Jasmine said, turning in his arms to face him. You're exactly the man I've been waiting for my whole life. Am I? Caleb asked, and there was something vulnerable in his voice that made her heart ache. Yes, Jasmine said firmly. You're kind and strong and honest. You work hard for what you have. You treat me like I'm precious. You make me feel like I'm worth fighting for. Caleb's eyes filled with tears and he pulled her closer. I love you so much it scares me sometimes, he said. I love you so much I don't know how I lived without you. You don't have to live without me, Jasmine said, her own eyes filling with tears. I'm not going anywhere, Caleb. I'm yours, completely. Promise me, Caleb said, his voice urgent. Promise me that when things get hard, when life gets complicated, you'll remember this moment. You'll remember how much we love each other. I promise, Jasmine said, confused by the intensity in his voice. But why are you talking like something's going to happen? Because I know how easy it is to lose the good things in life, Caleb said. I know how quickly everything can change. I just want to make sure you know how much you mean to me. Jasmine kissed him then, pouring all her love and reassurance into the contact. Nothing's going to change, she whispered against his lips. We're going to be okay. They made love under the stars, their bodies moving together with a passion that felt sacred, eternal. Caleb worshipped her with his hands and his mouth, whispering words of love and adoration that made her feel like a goddess. When they finally came together, it was with a desperation that spoke of souls recognizing their perfect match. Afterward, they lay entwined in their sleeping bags, Jasmine's head on Caleb's chest, listening to the sound of the lake lapping against the shore. I want to have your babies, Jasmine said suddenly, the words tumbling out before she could stop them. Caleb's body went still beneath her. What? I want to have your babies, Jasmine repeated, mortified but unable to take it back. I want to build a life with you, a family. I want to wake up every morning for the rest of my life and know that you're mine. Jasmine? Caleb's voice was thick with emotion. I know it's too soon, Jasmine said quickly. I know we haven't talked about it, but I love you so much, and I can't imagine my future without you in it. I can't imagine my future without you either, Caleb said, his arms tightening around her. I want all of that with you, the babies, the life, the forever. Really? Jasmine lifted her head to look at him. Really, Caleb said, cupping her face in his hands. I want to give you everything, Jasmine. Everything you've ever dreamed of. I don't need everything, Jasmine said. I just need you. What if I could give you more? Caleb asked, his voice careful. What if I could help you start that legal clinic you talked about? What if I could help make your dreams come true? Jasmine frowned. How? You're a construction worker, Caleb. You don't have that kind of money. Maybe not now, Caleb said, but someday. When I've saved enough. When I've built up my business. You want to start your own business? Jasmine asked, surprised. Maybe eventually, he said. If I could find the right investors, the right backing. Caleb trailed off, and Jasmine could see him thinking. There was a flicker in his expression, a split second where something deeper hid behind his words. Like he wasn't just dreaming of possibilities, but hiding a truth too heavy to name. Jasmine noticed the change, but didn't press. Not yet. That's a beautiful dream, Jasmine said. But I don't love you for what you might have someday. I love you for who you are right now. I know, Caleb said, and his voice was heavy with something that sounded like regret. His thumb brushed against her cheek, slow and reverent, like she was something fragile he didn't want to shatter. I just want to be able to give you the world. You already have, Jasmine said, settling back against his chest. You've given me love, respect, partnership. You've given me a reason to believe in happy endings again. As Jasmine drifted off to sleep in his arms, Caleb stared up at the star-filled sky and felt his heart breaking. Tomorrow they would drive back to the city, back to the lies and the deception. Tomorrow he would have to continue pretending to be someone he wasn't. But tonight, under the vast Colorado sky, with the woman he loved sleeping peacefully in his arms, Caleb allowed himself to believe that love could conquer anything, even the truth. He tightened his arms around her, holding her closer, as if his embrace could shield her from the storm that was coming. He closed his eyes and made a silent vow. He would find a way to tell Jasmine the truth without losing her. He would find a way to make this right. He had to. Because the alternative, life without Jasmine Parker, was unthinkable. And somewhere in the back of his mind, a plan began to form. A way to gradually reveal his true identity. To show her that the man she loved was real, even if the circumstances weren't. Tomorrow, he would start telling her the truth. Tomorrow, he would begin to make this right. Tonight, he would just hold her and pretend that love was enough to overcome any obstacle, even the obstacle of his own deception. Chapter 7. The Weight of Truth. Jasmine had never believed in perfect moments, until she found herself dancing in Caleb's arms in the middle of her apartment, with nothing but candlelight and the sound of rain against the windows. "I still can't believe you got a promotion," she said, her head resting against his chest as they swayed to the music playing from her phone. "Tell me everything." Caleb's arms tightened around her, and she felt the subtle tension in his body. "It's not that exciting," he said, his voice carefully casual. "Just a step up in responsibility. My boss noticed my work quality and offered me a supervisor position." "More money?" Jasmine asked, tilting her head to look at him. "Some," Caleb said, and she could see the conflict in his eyes. "Enough that I was thinking, maybe we could talk about moving in together." Jasmine's heart skipped a beat. "Moving in together? I know it's fast," Caleb said quickly, "but I love you, Jasmine. I love waking up next to you. I love coming home to you. I love the way you make even the simplest things feel extraordinary." "I love you too," Jasmine said, standing on her tiptoes to kiss him. "And yes, I want to move in with you. I want to build a life with you." "There's something I need to tell you," Caleb said, his voice serious, "something important." Jasmine felt a chill run down her spine. "What is it?" Caleb led her to the couch, his hands never leaving hers. "Jasmine, this promotion, it comes with opportunities, possibilities I hadn't considered before." "What do you mean?" "I mean, I might have chances now to grow, to build something bigger." Caleb's voice was careful, measured. "I might be able to help you start that legal clinic sooner than we thought." Jasmine frowned. "Caleb, what exactly is this promotion? Are you talking about becoming a foreman or something?" "Something like that," Caleb said, and she could see him struggling with his words. "Jasmine, what if I told you that I might have more potential than I originally let on?" "What do you mean?" Jasmine's voice was sharper now, fear creeping in around the edges. "I mean, what if I had access to resources I haven't mentioned? What if I could actually help you with your dreams?" Jasmine pulled her hands away from his, her heart starting to race. "Are you telling me you've been lying to me about money?" "Not lying," Caleb said quickly, "just not telling you everything." "That's the same thing," Jasmine said, standing up and pacing to the window. "Caleb, I told you from the beginning that I can't survive another relationship built on lies." "I know," Caleb said, his voice full of anguish. "I know, and I'm sorry. I wanted to tell you, but I was scared of losing you." "So you thought lying was better?" Jasmine turned to face him, her eyes blazing. "You thought deceiving me was the way to build trust?" "No," Caleb said, standing up and reaching for her. I thought if you knew the truth, you'd think I was just another rich guy trying to buy your affection." "The truth about what?" Jasmine demanded. "How rich are you, Caleb? Because construction workers don't get promoted to the kind of money you're talking about." Caleb opened his mouth to speak, then closed it again. Jasmine watched the war playing out on his face, saw the moment when he made his decision. "You're right," he said quietly. "I'm sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself. The promotion is good, but it's not life-changing money. I just want to be able to give you more than I can right now." Jasmine studied his face, sensing there was more he wasn't telling her. "Caleb, are you being honest with me?" "Yes," Caleb said, and she could hear the lie in his voice. "I'm being honest with you." "Then why do I feel like you're still hiding something?" Caleb crossed the room to her, taking her face in his hands. "Because if you knew who I really am, you might look at me the way you look at all the men who thought they could buy you. And I never, ever wanted you to see me that way." His voice broke on the last word, and Jasmine felt a crack form in her anger, just wide enough for compassion to slip through. "Because I love you so much that I sometimes dream bigger than reality allows, because I want to give you everything you deserve, and right now, I can't." Jasmine searched his eyes, looking for the truth. What she saw there was love, fear, and something that looked like desperation. But she also saw the man she'd fallen in love with, the gentle, hard-working man who had saved her from falling and claimed her as his own. "I don't need you to give me everything," she said softly. "I just need you to be honest with me." "I am being honest with you," Caleb said, and this time the lie came easier. "I love you, Jasmine, more than I've ever loved anyone. That's the only truth that matters." His words landed heavy in the space between them, not just a declaration, but a plea. A hope that if he repeated the truth loud enough, it might drown out the lie. Jasmine wanted to push, wanted to demand answers to the questions that were nagging at her. But looking into Caleb's eyes, seeing the love and vulnerability there, she found herself nodding. "Okay," she said, "I believe you." "Thank you," Caleb said, pulling her into his arms. "Thank you for trusting me." "I do trust you," Jasmine said, even as a small voice in her head whispered warnings. "I love you, Caleb. I love you exactly as you are. Not rich, not poor, just perfect." The words hit Caleb like a physical blow. He closed his eyes, holding her tighter, and felt his heart break completely. She loved him exactly as he was, which meant she loved a lie. She loved Caleb Brooks, the construction worker, not Caleb Brooks, the billionaire CEO. "I love you too," Caleb whispered, and he meant it with every fiber of his being. "I love you so much it terrifies me." "Don't be terrified," Jasmine said, pulling back to look at him. Her eyes glistened with both love and steely determination. "We're going to be okay. We're going to build something beautiful together." "Are we?" Caleb asked, his voice thick with emotion. "Yes," Jasmine said firmly, "we are." She placed a hand over his heart, feeling its steady thrum. "Because we love each other, and we're honest with each other, and we want the same things." Caleb nodded, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. He swallowed hard, knowing how fragile this moment was, how easily everything could shatter. Jasmine loved him for who he pretended to be, and every day he continued the charade was another day he betrayed that love. He stood frozen, torn between the truth and the lie, his heart pounding with guilt and hope. "Let's celebrate," Jasmine said, her mood brightening. "Your promotion, our future, us." "How do you want to celebrate?" Caleb asked, grateful for the change of subject. He exhaled, letting relief wash over him. "Cook me dinner," Jasmine said with a smile. "Something simple and perfect, just like you." In the kitchen, they moved together with the easy rhythm of partners who had learned each other's movements. Every touch was intimate, a silent promise. Caleb cooked while Jasmine opened wine, and they talked about their future like it was a certainty, like nothing could tear them apart. The sense of garlic and tomatoes filled the air, mingling with the warmth between them. "I want to marry you," Caleb said suddenly, the words coming out before he could stop them. Jasmine nearly dropped her wineglass. "What?" "I want to marry you," Caleb repeated, turning to face her. "I know it's too soon. I know we haven't talked about it, but I can't imagine my life without you in it. I want to wake up every morning for the rest of my life and know that you're mine." Her breath caught, his words more precious than any ring could be. "Caleb," Jasmine's voice was barely a whisper. He took a careful step forward, his vulnerability laid bare. "I don't have a ring yet," Caleb said, his words tumbling out in a rush. "I can't afford the kind of ring you deserve, but I'm saving up. I'm going to buy you something beautiful, something that shows the world how much I love you." Jasmine set down her wineglass and crossed the room to him. She reached up, lifting his chin until their eyes met, raw and honest. "I don't need an expensive ring," she said, wrapping her arms around his neck. "I just need you. Is that a yes?" Caleb asked, his heart pounding, fear and joy warring in his chest. "That's a yes," Jasmine said, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, I'll marry you. Yes, I want to spend the rest of my life with you." He pressed his forehead to hers, tears mixing with hers, a testament to everything they'd survived. Caleb kissed her then, pouring all his love and desperation into the contact. She tasted like wine and tears and forever, and he knew he would never love anyone the way he loved her. He felt every beat of his heart whisper that the lie might destroy them, but so might keeping it inside. "I promise I'll be a good husband," he said against her lips. "I promise I'll take care of you, protect you, love you for the rest of my life." "I promise the same," Jasmine said. "I promise I'll love you exactly as you are, forever. The words were like a knife to Caleb's heart. She was promising to love a lie, and he was letting her. But looking into her eyes, seeing the joy and love there, he couldn't bring himself to destroy her happiness. Not tonight. Tonight, he would let her believe in their fairy tale. Tonight, he would hold her and make love to her and pretend that their future was built on truth instead of deception. They made love with a passion that bordered on desperate, as if they were both trying to prove something to each other. Caleb worshipped her body with his hands and his mouth, memorizing every curve, every sound she made. Jasmine gave herself to him completely, holding nothing back, trusting him with her heart and her body and her future. Afterward, they lay entwined in her bed, Jasmine's head on his chest, her engagement ring finger tracing lazy patterns on his skin. "I can't wait to be your wife," she said softly. "I can't wait to build a life with you." "What kind of life do you want?" Caleb asked, his voice rough with emotion. "Simple," Jasmine said. "A little house somewhere, maybe a garden. Children who grow up knowing they're loved. Sunday mornings in bed, quiet evenings together. Nothing fancy, just real." "That sounds perfect," Caleb said, and he meant it. "That sounds like everything I've ever wanted." "Good," Jasmine said, pressing a kiss to his chest, "because that's what we're going to have. You and me against the world." "You and me," Caleb agreed, but his voice was heavy with the weight of secrets. As Jasmine drifted off to sleep in his arms, Caleb stared at the ceiling and felt the full weight of his deception crushing down on him. He had been about to tell her the truth, had been ready to confess everything, but her words had stopped him cold. She loved him exactly as he was. She loved Caleb Jordan, the construction worker, not Caleb Jordan, the billionaire. And now she was going to marry him, build a life with him, have his children, all based on a lie so fundamental that it poisoned everything they shared. He had to tell her the truth. But how could he destroy the happiness in her eyes? How could he risk losing the only real love he'd ever known? Tomorrow, he told himself. Tomorrow, he would find a way to make this right. Tonight, he would just hold her and pretend that love was enough to overcome any obstacle, even the obstacle of his own cowardice. But deep in his heart, Caleb knew that tomorrow would bring the same fear, the same excuses, the same lies. And each day he stayed silent was another day he betrayed the woman he loved more than life itself. The woman who was going to marry a man who didn't exist. In the space of a single news report, she was sitting in her favorite coffee shop, reviewing case files for the morning when she glanced up at the television mounted on the wall. The volume was low, but she could see the headlines scrolling across the bottom of the screen. Tech mogul Caleb Jordan receives humanitarian award for educational initiative. Her heart stopped. It didn't just pause. It clenched, twisted, like a muscle locking from sudden trauma. Her breath caught mid-inhale, lodged somewhere between disbelief and rising dread. The man on the screen was wearing a perfectly tailored tuxedo, his hair styled flawlessly, his smile confident and polished. He was standing at a podium accepting an award from the governor of Colorado, surrounded by Denver's elite. He looked like money, power, privilege, everything she had been taught to distrust, everything she had spent a lifetime running from. He looked exactly like Caleb, her Caleb. The Caleb who made her laugh when the world felt heavy. The one who brushed pain out of her hair and told her she was beautiful with morning breath and mismatched socks. But it couldn't be. Her Caleb was a construction worker who wore thrift store clothes and worried about bus fare. Her Caleb was honest and humble and real. Her Caleb didn't accept awards from governors. Her Caleb didn't live a life on stages and red carpets. The man on the screen was Caleb Jordan, CEO of Jordan Technologies, worth an estimated $2.8 billion. Jasmine's coffee cup slipped from her numb fingers, shattering on the floor and sending hot liquid splashing across her shoes. She stared at the screen, watching the man she loved, the man she was engaged to marry, shake hands with politicians and business leaders like he belonged in their world. Because he did belong in their world. And she had never even been invited. The coffee shop around her seemed to fade away as the truth crashed over her like a devastating wave. Every moment they'd shared, every kiss, every "I love you," it had all been a lie. The camping trip that had seemed so perfect because Caleb had found the ideal campsite. The way he always seemed to have exactly what they needed, exactly when they needed it. The tools that were too high quality for a construction worker. The knowledge that went far beyond manual labor. All of it. All of it had been clues, breadcrumbs she had chosen not to follow, because her heart had wanted so badly to believe that this time love was simple, safe, real. She had been so naive, so desperate to believe in love that she had ignored every warning sign. Jasmine ran from the coffee shop, her vision blurred by tears, her chest tight with the kind of pain that made it hard to breathe. She drove through the streets of Denver in a daze, running red lights, ignoring the honking horns of other drivers. She had to get to him. She had to look him in the eye and hear him try to explain away this betrayal. The address she found online led her to a gleaming downtown high-rise that screamed money and power. The Jordan Technologies building, a monument to success. Its glass and steel facade reflected the Denver skyline like a mirror. Jasmine sat in her car across the street, staring up at the building, feeling smaller and more insignificant than she had ever felt in her life. Her phone buzzed with a text from Caleb. "Caleb, good morning, beautiful. Can't wait to see you tonight. I love you." Jasmine stared at the message, her hands shaking. Even now, even after she knew the truth, he was still lying to her, still pretending to be someone he wasn't. She typed back with trembling fingers, "Jasmine, I know who you are." Her phone rang immediately. "Jasmine, let me explain." Caleb's voice was panicked, desperate. "Please, just let me explain." "Explain what?" Jasmine's voice was eerily calm. "Explain how you've been lying to me for months. Explain how you made me fall in love with someone who doesn't exist." "I never lied about loving you," Caleb said, his voice breaking. "That was never a lie. Jasmine, I love you more than I've ever loved anyone." "Where are you?" "I'm outside your building," Jasmine said, and hung up. 15 minutes later, she stood in the marble lobby of Jordan Technologies, feeling like an alien in her simple dress and modest heels. Everyone around her screamed wealth and privilege. The security guards in tailored suits, the receptionist with flawless makeup and designer clothes, the executives who walked past her like she was invisible. "Miss Mitchell?" A woman in an immaculate business suit approached her. "Mr. Jordan is waiting for you in his private elevator." Jasmine followed the woman across the lobby, her footsteps echoing in the vast space. The private elevator was a work of art. Polished brass and rich wood, with a control panel that required a key card to operate. As they rose to the top floor, Jasmine watched the city shrink below them and felt like she was ascending to another world entirely. The elevator opened directly into Caleb's office, and Jasmine's breath caught in her throat. The space was enormous, with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a panoramic view of the Rocky Mountains. The furniture was obviously expensive, the artwork on the walls worth more than most people made in a year. And in the center of it all stood Caleb. No longer the humble construction worker she had fallen in love with. He was wearing a charcoal gray suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent. His hair was perfectly styled, his shoes polished to a mirror shine. He looked like he belonged in this world of wealth and power. He looked like a stranger. "Jasmine," he said, his voice full of anguish. "Thank you for coming." "Don't," Jasmine said, her voice sharp as a blade. "Don't. Thank me. Don't act like this is some kind of reunion, please." "Let me explain," Caleb said, taking a step toward her. "I can explain everything." "Can you?" Jasmine's voice was deceptively calm. "Can you explain how you've been lying to me since the moment we met? Can you explain how you made me believe you were something you're not?" "I never lied about the important things," Caleb said desperately. "I never lied about loving you, about wanting to build a life with you." "You lied about everything." Jasmine's composure finally cracked, her voice rising to a shout. "You lied about who you are, what you do, where you live. You made me believe you were struggling financially while you're worth billions." "I wanted you to love me for who I am, not what I have," Caleb said, his own voice rising. "I wanted you to love me, not my bank account." "I don't even know who you are," Jasmine screamed. "The man I fell in love with doesn't exist. He's a character you created to manipulate me." "That's not true," Caleb said, his voice breaking. "The man you fell in love with is me, the real me. The money doesn't change that, doesn't it?" Jasmine laughed bitterly. "You think I'm some kind of gold digger? You think I can't tell the difference between love and manipulation? No, Caleb said quickly. I never thought that. I know you're not like that. Then why? Jasmine's voice was raw with pain. Why did you lie to me? Why did you make me believe you were someone else? Caleb ran his hands through his hair, destroying the perfect styling. Because I was scared. Because every other woman I've ever met has wanted me for my money. Because I thought if you knew the truth, you'd reject me. So you decided to lie to me instead. Jasmine said, her voice hollow. You decided to build our entire relationship on deception. I fell in love with you, Caleb said, tears streaming down his face. I fell in love with you, and I didn't know how to tell you the truth without losing you. And now you've lost me anyway, Jasmine said, her voice eerily calm. Congratulations, Caleb. You've managed to destroy the only real thing in your life. Don't say that, Caleb pleaded, reaching for her. Please, Jasmine, I love you. I love you so much it's killing me. Don't touch me. Jasmine, Caleb said, backing away from her. Don't ever touch me again. Jasmine, please, Caleb begged. I know I screwed up. I know I should have told you the truth from the beginning, but I love you, and I know you love me too. I loved a lie, Jasmine said, her voice breaking. Every day, every breath, I thought I was living a love story, only to find out I was living a performance. I exist, Caleb said desperately. I'm real, Jasmine. My feelings for you are real. Are they? Jasmine's voice was sharp with pain. How can I trust anything you say after everything's been built on deceit? Or is this just another game to you? Another way to entertain yourself with the poor girl who didn't know any better? How can you say that? Caleb's voice was anguished. How can you even think that? Because you're just like him, Jasmine said, her voice cold as ice. You're just like Charles Whitman. You're just like every other wealthy man who thinks he can play with people's lives for his own amusement. You played me, my heart, my dreams, like a pawn in your billionaire world. I'm nothing like him, Caleb said, his voice shaking with emotion. I love you, Jasmine. I want to marry you, build a life with you. With your construction worker persona? Jasmine laughed bitterly. Or with the real Caleb Morrison? Because I don't know which one proposed to me. Both. Caleb said desperately. They're both me, Jasmine. The money doesn't change who I am inside. The money changes everything, Jasmine said, her voice final. The money means you had the power to destroy me, and you chose to use it. You held my heart in your hands and then shattered it when it was at its most vulnerable. I never wanted to hurt you, Caleb said, his voice breaking. I only wanted to love you. Well, congratulations, Jasmine said, pulling the engagement ring from her finger. You've succeeded in doing both. She threw the ring at his feet, and it skittered across the polished marble floor like a discarded toy. Caleb dropped to his knees, scrambling to pick it up, his perfect suit forgotten. Jasmine, please, he begged, the ring clutched in his palm. Don't do this. Don't throw away what we have. We don't have anything, Jasmine said, her voice hollow. We never did. It was all a lie. It wasn't a lie, Caleb said, still on his knees. My love for you was never a lie. Your love? Jasmine's voice was bitter. You don't love me, Caleb. You love the idea of me. You love the fantasy of the grateful poor girl who fell for your act. That's not true, Caleb said, struggling to his feet. I love you. Not a fantasy, not an idea. I love the way your eyes light up when you laugh, the way you fight for justice, the way you make me want to be better, even if I didn't show it the right way. I love you. I love your strength, your intelligence, your passion. I love the way you fight for what's right. I love the way you make me want to be better than I am. Then why didn't you trust me with the truth? Jasmine asked, her voice breaking. If you really loved me, why didn't you trust me enough to be honest? Caleb opened his mouth to answer, then closed it again. Because the truth was, he hadn't trusted her. He had been so afraid of losing her that he had never given her the chance to accept him for who he really was. I was scared, he said finally. I was scared of losing you. And now you have, Jasmine said, tears streaming down her face. Now you've lost me anyway, and you've destroyed any chance we might have had. There has to be a way to fix this, Caleb said desperately. There has to be a way to make this right. There is no way to fix this, Jasmine said, her voice final. You can't build a relationship on lies and expect it to last. Jasmine, please, Caleb begged one last time. I love you, I love you more than I've ever loved anyone. Please don't leave me." Jasmine looked at him one last time. This man who had saved her, loved her, and ultimately destroyed her. He was still beautiful, still the man whose touch had made her feel alive. But he was also a stranger, a billionaire who had been playing dress-up in her world. "Goodbye, Caleb," she said quietly. "I hope you find whatever it is you're really looking for." She turned and walked toward the elevator, her back straight, her head held high. Even in her pain, even in her devastation, she was still a queen. "Jasmine," Caleb called after her, his voice breaking. "Jasmine, please." But the elevator doors closed between them, and Jasmine Taylor disappeared from Caleb Morrison's life as suddenly as she had entered it. Caleb stood alone in his office, the engagement ring clutched in his fist, and felt his world crumble around him. He had everything money could buy: power, success, influence. But he had lost the only thing that had ever mattered. He had lost his queen. And as he stood there, surrounded by the trappings of his wealth, Caleb realized that he had never been more poor in his life. Like everything else in his life, Caleb had tried to return to his old routine: board meetings, business dinners, charity galas, but everything felt hollow, meaningless. The success that had once driven him now felt like a prison, and every day without Jasmine was another day serving a life sentence. His phone buzzed with a text from his assistant, Olivia. "Olivia, the foundation paperwork is ready for your signature. The Jasmine Taylor Foundation for Women's Legal Aid will be officially launched next week." Caleb stared at the message, his chest tight with pain. The foundation was his attempt at redemption, his way of honoring the woman he'd lost. He had endowed it with $50 million, enough to provide free legal services to women across Nevada. It was everything Jasmine had ever dreamed of, and she would never know it existed. Each dollar felt like a silent apology, a hope to mend what his lies had broken. But the silence between them was deafening. He typed back with trembling fingers, "Caleb, make sure the donor remains anonymous. Jasmine can never know the money came from me." "Are you sure about that?" "She might." "I'm sure. She made it clear she wants nothing to do with me or my money." He set his phone aside and picked up the framed photo from his desk, the only picture he had of Jasmine, taken on their camping trip. She was laughing at something he'd said, her face radiant with joy and love. It had been the happiest moment of his life. Now it was just a reminder of everything he'd lost. The weight of that loss pressed down on him, suffocating in its permanence. A knock at his door interrupted his thoughts. "Come in," he called, expecting one of his security staff. Instead, Marcus Steele walked into his office. His expensive suit was wrinkled, his usually perfect hair disheveled. Jasmine's ex-husband looked like he hadn't slept in days. "What the hell do you want?" Caleb asked, his voice dangerous. "I want to talk to you about Jasmine," Marcus said, his voice slurred with alcohol. "I want to know what you did to her." Caleb stood up slowly, his hands clenched into fists. "I don't owe you any explanations." "She's destroyed," Marcus said, swaying slightly. "I saw her at the courthouse yesterday. She looks like a ghost, like someone drained all the life out of her." Each word cut deeper than any insult, but Caleb refused to show it. "Get out," Caleb said, his voice low and threatening. "What did you do to her?" Marcus demanded. "She was getting better, she was happy, and then you came along and ruined everything." "I ruined everything?" Caleb laughed bitterly. "You cheated on her, tried to steal her business, and made her feel worthless. I loved her." "Did you?" Caleb's voice was sharp with pain. "Because the woman I saw yesterday doesn't look like someone who was loved. She looks like someone who was destroyed." The words hit Caleb like physical blows. "You don't know what you're talking about." "I know that I made mistakes," Marcus said, his voice breaking. "I know that I hurt her, and I know that I lost the most incredible woman I've ever known, but at least I never lied to her about who I was." "You lied to her every day," Caleb said, his voice shaking with rage. "You lied when you promised to love her, when you promised to be faithful, when you promised to build a life with her. And you lied about everything," Marcus shot back. "You made her believe you were someone else entirely. You made her fall in love with a fiction." "I made her fall in love with me," Caleb said desperately. "The real me. The money doesn't change who I am. Doesn't it?" Marcus laughed bitterly. "You think I don't know what it's like to have money? You think I don't know how it changes everything? You had the power to give her everything she ever wanted, and instead you chose to lie to her. I was protecting her, Caleb said, but the words sounded hollow even to his own ears. From what? From being loved by someone who could actually give her the world? Marcus shook his head. You were protecting yourself, not her. You were too much of a coward to risk rejection. Get out, Caleb said again, his voice barely controlled. I'm going to win her back, Marcus said, his voice suddenly steady. I'm going to prove to her that I've changed, that I can be the man she deserves. She'll never take you back, Caleb said, but there was fear in his voice now. Won't she? Marcus smiled, a cold expression that didn't reach his eyes. At least I never pretended to be someone else. At least she knows exactly who I am. After Marcus left, Caleb sat back down at his desk, the man's words echoing in his mind. The truth was, he was terrified that Marcus was right. Terrified that Jasmine would eventually forgive her ex-husband's honest betrayal more easily than she would forgive Caleb's loving deception. Across town, Jasmine stood in her apartment, staring at the walls that Caleb had painted with such care. The sage green that had once made her feel peaceful now felt like a prison, a constant reminder of the happiness she'd lost. She had tried to paint over it, to erase every trace of him from her life, but every time she picked up a brush, she remembered the way he had looked at her while they worked together, the way he had made her feel loved. Her phone rang. Marcus, again. What do you want? She answered. I want to see you. He said, his voice gentler than she'd heard it in years. I want to talk. We have nothing to talk about, Jasmine said. We have everything to talk about, Jasmine. I know I hurt you. I know I made terrible mistakes, but I also know that watching you destroy yourself over another man is killing me. You don't get to care about my pain, Jasmine said sharply. You lost that right when you cheated on me. I know. I don't deserve your forgiveness, Marcus said quietly. But I need you to know something. I've been sober for 3 months. I've been in therapy. I've been trying to understand why I threw away the best thing that ever happened to me. Jasmine was quiet, surprised by his honesty. The truth is, I was scared, Marcus continued. Scared of how much I needed you. Scared of not being worthy of you. So I sabotaged it before you could leave me. I know that's not an excuse, but it's the truth. Why are you telling me this now? Because I see you making the same mistake I did. You're so afraid of being hurt that you're pushing away the man who loves you. Caleb lied to me about everything, Jasmine said. I lied to you too, Marcus said. I lied every time I said I was working late when I was with another woman. I lied when I said I loved you while I was destroying our marriage. At least he lied because he was afraid of losing you. I lied because I was afraid of keeping you. Jasmine felt tears streaming down her face. I don't know how to trust anyone anymore. Then don't trust me, Marcus said. Don't trust him. But don't give up on the possibility of love because 2 men were too scared to deserve you. After she hung up, Jasmine sat in her apartment, surrounded by memories of Caleb. She had loved him completely, honestly, with every fiber of her being, and he had lied to her about everything that mattered. But late at night, when she couldn't sleep, she found herself remembering the way he had looked at her, the way he had touched her, the way he had made her feel like the most precious thing in the world. Those moments had felt real, even if everything else was a lie. Had they been real? Or had she just been a gullible fool, blinded by loneliness and desperation? The next morning, Jasmine's assistant knocked on her office door. There's someone here to see you, Taylor said, her voice a little strange. She says it's about a job opportunity. The woman who walked into Jasmine's office was impeccably dressed, with silver hair and kind eyes. She looked like wealth, but not the cold, calculated kind Jasmine had grown used to fearing. Miss Blake, the woman said, extending her hand. I'm Margaret Thompson, director of the Jasmine Blake Foundation for Women's Legal Aid. Jasmine stared at her. I'm sorry, what? The foundation, Margaret repeated gently. We've been trying to reach you for weeks. We have a very generous donor who wants to fund a legal clinic in your name. I don't understand, Jasmine said, her thoughts reeling. What foundation? What donor? The donor wishes to remain anonymous, Margaret said, pulling a thick folder from her bag. But they've provided $50 million to establish a legal aid clinic, exactly like the one you described in your interview with Denver Legal Weekly. Jasmine felt the floor tilt beneath her. $50 million? Yes, Margaret confirmed. The donor was very specific about wanting to honor your dedication to helping women who can't afford legal services. Jasmine's hands trembled as she opened the folder. Inside were incorporation documents, building contracts, hiring agreements, everything she'd ever dreamed of having for the clinic she wanted to build. "Who is the donor?" she asked, although her heart already knew the answer. "I'm afraid I can't disclose that," Margaret replied. "But I can tell you this. They believe deeply in your work, and they don't want anything in return, just to see you succeed." Jasmine stared at the documents, her vision blurring with tears. Even now, after she had walked away from him, Caleb was still trying to take care of her, still trying to make her dreams come true. "I can't accept this," she said, her voice cracking. "Why not?" Margaret asked, surprised. "This is everything you've ever worked toward." "Because it's not real," Jasmine whispered, pushing the folder away. "It's just another lie, another manipulation." "Miss Blake," Margaret said gently, "I don't know what happened between you and the donor, but I can promise you this. The foundation is real. The funding is real. The opportunity to help thousands of women, it's all very real." Jasmine looked down at the papers again, her heart breaking. This was everything she had ever wanted, handed to her on a silver platter, but it came from the man who had lied to her about everything. Accepting it would mean accepting that their entire relationship had been built on deception. "I need time to think," Jasmine said finally. "Of course," Margaret replied, standing up. "But please don't take too long. There are women out there who need your help." After Margaret left, Jasmine sat in her office, staring at the folder. Inside those papers was the opportunity to help thousands of women, to make a real difference in the world. But it also represented everything she had lost, the dreams she had shared with Caleb, the future they had once planned together. Could she accept his money without accepting his lies? Could she separate the gift from the giver? Or would taking this foundation mean admitting that she had been wrong to walk away? 3 months of heartbreak had taught her one undeniable truth. Love was far more complicated than she'd ever imagined. Sometimes the people who hurt you most were the very ones who loved you best. But was love enough to overcome betrayal? Was forgiveness possible when the wound still bled? As Jasmine sat surrounded by the evidence of Caleb's love and his deception, she realized this would be the most important decision of her life. Accept the foundation and risk opening her heart to the man who had shattered it, or reject it and lose the chance to fulfill her life's purpose. Either way, she had to ask herself, was love worth the risk of pain? Did Caleb deserve a second chance? Did she deserve happiness, even if it meant forgiving the unforgivable? The folder remained on her desk like a silent challenge. And Jasmine Blake, the woman who had never backed down from a fight, found herself staring at the most personal battle of her life, the battle for her own heart. Chapter 10. The Queen Reclaims Her Kingdom. Jasmine had never believed in second chances, until she spent 3 weeks watching her mother die, and in those final raw days, she heard truths that shifted everything. "I've been thinking about that young man of yours," her mother said one afternoon, her voice weak, but her eyes sharp. "The one who lied to you." Jasmine stiffened. "I don't want to talk about Caleb." "I know you don't, but I need to." Her mother struggled to sit up. "Because I see myself in you, baby. I see the same pride, the same fear." "It's not the same thing, Mama. Isn't it?" Her mother's eyes filled with tears. "I never told you the whole truth about Marcus Bennett." Jasmine's heart clenched. "What truth?" "He didn't leave because you were too dark," her mother said, voice cracking. "He left because I was too scared to forgive him." "What do you mean?" "When his friends made those awful comments about you, Marcus was furious. He defended us, cut those people out of his life. But I was so hurt, so angry, I couldn't see past my own pain. I told him if he truly loved us, he would have protected us from hearing those words at all." Jasmine felt her world tilt again. "He tried to make it right. He wanted to marry me, adopt you, make you his daughter in every way that mattered. But I was so afraid of being hurt again, I pushed him away." "First, baby, he tried for 2 years to come back," her mother said. "He called, he wrote, he sent money for your school. But I was too proud to answer, too scared to believe he meant it when he said he loved us. Jasmine felt her mother's grip tighten on her hand. I threw away the love of my life because I was afraid to be vulnerable. Tears spilled down Jasmine's cheeks. Why are you telling me this now? Because I don't want you to make the same mistake I did. I don't want you to spend 30 years alone, wondering what if. Her mother's voice grew more urgent. That young man of yours, he lied about money, not love. Just like I lied about why Marcus left. We both let fear make us fools. I don't know how to forgive him, Jasmine whispered. You start by admitting you're scared, her mother said gently. Then you decide if love is worth the risk of being hurt again. Her mother's voice was fading. What if you're wrong about him? What if he really does love you, as much as you love him? Her mother passed 2 days later, with Jasmine at her side, holding her hand and finally understanding the weight of regret. 30 years alone. 30 years of wondering. Jasmine didn't want to live like that. Not if there was a chance. 3 days later, Jasmine stood outside Bennett Holdings, her heart pounding. She'd been there for 20 minutes, summoning the courage to walk inside. In her bag was the foundation paperwork, signed, official, ready to be filed. She had decided to accept Caleb's gift, not because she had forgiven him, but because she refused to let the ruins of their relationship stop her from helping other women. But as she looked up at the tower where 6 months earlier she had walked away from him, Jasmine realized she was here for something else entirely. She was here to fight for her love. The security guard recognized her and motioned toward the private elevator. Jasmine's hands trembled as she pressed the button for the top floor, her heart pounding with each passing level. When the elevator doors opened and she stepped into Caleb's office, her breath caught in her throat. He was standing at the window, his back to her, dressed in one of those expensive suits she used to tease him about. She had seen him in that suit before, but this time something was different. His shoulders sagged, his posture weary, and even from behind, Jasmine could see the exhaustion etched into every line of his body. "Hello, Caleb," she said softly. He spun around, eyes wide with shock. Jasmine, she had forgotten how beautiful he was. 6 months apart had dimmed her memory. The deep, stormy blue of his eyes, the strong line of his jaw, and the way he looked at her like she was the most precious thing in the world. "I signed the foundation papers," she said, pulling the folder from her bag. "I wanted to thank you." "You don't have to thank me," Caleb replied, his voice hoarse. "I should have told you the truth from the beginning." "Yes, you should have," Jasmine said as she stepped closer. "You should have trusted me." "I know," Caleb said, his voice cracking. "I know I messed everything up. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness." "You're right, you don't," Jasmine said, and she saw him flinch. "You lied to me about everything. You made me fall in love with someone who didn't exist." "Jasmine, I'm not finished," she cut him off, her voice firm. "You made me believe love could be simple, honest, and real. You made me think I could trust someone completely, and then you showed me it was all a lie." Caleb's face crumpled, and tears spilled down his cheeks. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry, Jasmine. I loved you so much, and I destroyed everything." "Did you really destroy everything?" Jasmine asked, her voice softer now. "What do you mean?" Caleb looked at her, confused. "I mean, did you lie about loving me?" "Never," Caleb said immediately. "I never lied about that." "Did you lie about wanting to build a life with me?" "No," Caleb said, his voice firmer now. "I meant every word." "Did you lie about who you are inside, your values, your dreams, your heart?" Caleb stared at her, understanding dawning in his eyes. "No," he said quietly. "I never lied about who I am inside." "Then maybe you didn't destroy everything," Jasmine said, stepping closer. "Maybe you just made some very stupid decisions." "Jasmine," Caleb said, his voice full of hope and fear. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I spent 6 months hating you for lying to me," Jasmine replied, "and the same 6 months missing you so badly I could barely breathe." "I could barely breathe," Jasmine said, tears shimmering in her eyes. "I missed you too," Caleb replied, his voice thick with emotion. "Every day, every night, I missed you so much it drove me crazy." "My mom passed away," Jasmine said suddenly. "Oh, Jasmine," Caleb instinctively reached for her. "I'm so sorry." 3 days ago," Jasmine said, letting him take her hands. "Before she died, she told me something. She said she once lost the love of her life because she was too proud to forgive him. She spent 30 years alone because she was too afraid to trust love again. Tears spilled down Jasmine's cheeks. She died full of regret. "I'm so sorry," Caleb whispered, pulling her closer. "I'm so sorry you had to go through that alone." "I don't want to live with regret," Jasmine said, locking eyes with him. "I don't want to spend the rest of my life wondering what would have happened if I had been brave enough to forgive you." "What are you saying?" Caleb asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'm saying I love you," Jasmine said, her voice steady and sure. "I love you, Caleb Hart. Not your money, not your success, not your power. I love the man who caught me when I fell, who held me when I cried, who made me believe in love again." "I love you too," Caleb said, cupping her face in his hands. "I love you more than I've ever loved anyone." "I know," Jasmine said, smiling through her tears. "I've always seen it in your eyes. I've always known. Can you forgive me?" Caleb asked, his voice full of both hope and fear. "I can," Jasmine said, "if you promise me one thing." "Anything," Caleb answered instantly. "Promise me you'll never lie to me again," Jasmine said. "Promise me you'll trust me with the truth, even when it's hard." "I promise," Caleb said solemnly. "I promise I'll never lie to you again. I promise I'll trust you with everything. And promise me you'll love me exactly as I am," Jasmine added. "Not as a fantasy or an ideal, but as the real, complicated, imperfect woman I am." "I promise," Caleb said, his voice choked with emotion. "I promise I'll love you exactly as you are, for the rest of my life." "Then I can forgive you," Jasmine said, rising on her toes to kiss him. "I can forgive you, and I can love you, and I can build a life with you." Caleb kissed her, pouring 6 months of longing, regret, and hope into that kiss. Jasmine kissed him back, tasting tears, forgiveness, and the promise of a future together. In that kiss, all the pain and distance between them melted away, leaving only the raw, beautiful possibility of what could be. "Marry me," Caleb whispered against her lips. "Be my wife, my partner, my everything." "Yes," Jasmine said, laughing and crying at the same time. "Yes, I'll marry you." Caleb dropped to one knee, pulling a small box from his pocket. "I've been carrying this for 6 months," he said as he opened it to reveal the most beautiful ring Jasmine had ever seen. "I bought it the day after you left, hoping one day I'd have the chance to give it to you." "It's perfect," Jasmine said, holding out her hand. "Absolutely perfect." As Caleb slid the ring onto her finger, Jasmine looked down at him and saw her entire future in his eyes. Laughter and tears, arguments and reconciliations, children, grandchildren, and a love that would last a lifetime. It was a future built not on illusions, but on the strength of their shared truths and the courage to forgive. "I have one more thing to tell you," Caleb said, standing up and wrapping his arms around her. "What is it?" "I'm stepping down as CEO," Caleb said. "I'm going to focus on the foundation, on using my money to help people. I want to be the man you fell in love with, the man who builds things that matter." "You don't have to do that for me," Jasmine said. "I'm not doing it for you," Caleb said with a smile. "I'm doing it for us, because I want to be worthy of your love." "You've always been worthy," Jasmine said, pulling him closer. "Always." 6 months later, Jasmine Evans became Jasmine Hart in a wedding that made the society pages for all the right reasons. She wore her mother's wedding dress. Caleb wore a simple black tuxedo, and they exchanged vows that brought tears to the eyes of everyone in attendance. "I promise to love you," Jasmine said, gazing into Caleb's eyes, "in wealth and in poverty, in truth and in forgiveness, for all the days of my life." "I promise to love you," Caleb replied, honestly and completely, "with everything I have and everything I am, for all the days of my life." As they kissed to seal their vows, Jasmine caught sight of Daniel in the crowd, her ex-husband, watching with an expression of regret and resignation. He had finally realized he'd lost his queen to a man who truly knew how to cherish her. But Jasmine didn't spare him another glance. She was too busy being kissed by her husband, too busy beginning the rest of her life with the man who had caught her when she fell and never let her go. In that moment, surrounded by love and hope, all the scars of the past began to heal. The Jasmine Hart Foundation for Women's Legal Aid opened just 1 month after the wedding, and Jasmine poured her heart into the work with renewed passion. She fought fiercely for women who, like her, deserved justice and a chance to build a better future, proving that sometimes love is the greatest legacy of all. She helped hundreds of women, fought dozens of cases, and built the clinic of her dreams. But her greatest victory was the love she had nearly lost. The man who had lied to her and then spent the rest of his life proving that love could overcome any obstacle, even the obstacle of truth. Every success in her career was a testament to her resilience, but the real triumph lay in the fragile, tender bond they had rebuilt, one founded on honesty, forgiveness, and unwavering commitment. As Isabella sat in her office at the foundation, her hand resting on her growing belly, she looked at the photo on her desk. Logan, in his work clothes, painting her apartment with such care and love. That photo captured a moment of genuine tenderness, an unspoken promise that despite all the deception, their hearts had found a way back to each other. He had been pretending to be someone else, but in that picture, she could see the truth he had been hiding. He had been pretending to be poor, but he had never pretended to love her. And in the end, that was the only truth that mattered. Love, raw and unfiltered, had been the one constant through the lies and fears. It was the thread that mended their broken past and wove a hopeful future. The queen had reclaimed her kingdom, and she planned to rule it with love, forgiveness, and the knowledge that sometimes the greatest victories come from the courage to fight for what you've lost. Sometimes the greatest love stories are the ones that survive the truth. And sometimes, just sometimes, love really is enough. And with that love, she was ready to face whatever came next, with strength, grace, and an open heart. Hey, our wonderful friends, if you're still here at this hour, then there must be something in this story that's really touching your heart, isn't there? And now, let's just sit for a moment and look at life together from a fresh perspective, like two friends having a real conversation. This story teaches us that life isn't perfect, and love isn't always easy. Sometimes, the people we trust the most might keep secrets, and the truth can hurt deeply. But what really matters is the courage to forgive, the power to heal, and the strength to build something beautiful from broken pieces. Like the wise words from otherism remind us, healing doesn't mean the damage never existed. It means the damage no longer controls our lives. That's so true. Our past wounds don't have to define our future. Jasmine and Caleb's journey shows us that honesty and vulnerability are the foundations of true love. It's okay to be scared, to feel uncertain, and to take small steps, because love is not just a feeling. It's a choice to stand together, to fight for each other, and to believe in each other's worth even when the world doubts it. So if this story has touched you, maybe even opened a door in your heart, I invite you to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Let's keep sharing stories that remind us we're never alone in our struggles, that healing is possible, and that love, with all its imperfections, is still worth fighting for. Thank you for staying with me this late. Remember, as the story beautifully shows, sometimes love really is enough to rebuild a life, and sometimes that love begins with simply believing in yourself. Stay strong, keep loving, and take care of each other.